takes are everywhere, but they're often uninformed, and major news is biased. We've had enough of hot takes. We want informed takes. Join Kevin Briggins and Devin Smith as they have rational conversations about domestic politics, geopolitics, and military affairs. Things will get interesting as they bring in expert guests, even from across the aisle. Grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and hop into the chat. It's time for Informed Takes.
Welcome back to Informed Takes. I am Kevin Briggins. He is Devin Smith. Man, we are so glad you guys are back with us. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. And just thanks for hanging out with us on another Friday night. How you been, man?
Man, I've been good. It's been a busy but good week, man. I tell you what, I've really been, man. I've been unburdened, man. I've been unburdened, baby.
By what has been. Yes.
Oh, man. Never did I think that phrase would ever bring me joy, but it does now.
It does. It does. Oh, man. And I thought about when we said we were going to wear these. Well, first, when you made them, and then we said we were going to wear them, I was like, we said we were going to be professional when we did this, and we weren't going to be petty. But this is petty.
It's petty. I mean,
it's worth it.
Hey, we gotta have a sense of humor. If we had lost, okay, if Trump had lost, okay, you know that SNL would be roasting Trump, SNL would be roasting Republicans, and we would take it in stride. We would have fun. We would be able to take jokes. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, man, and I guarantee you that there would have been an unburdened joke on the other side if she won.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, if you guys like these, there should be a link being put in the chat if you, and let's get started. So this week for me, I was out of touch, mainly because where I was, I barely had internet service. And so there was a lot going on this week, and you were sending me stuff, and I was like, I can't even play it. So for those that don't know, I was on a guy's fly fishing trip to Montana this week, and man, we were in the middle of nowhere, Montana, and it was beautiful. Caught some fish, had a great time, but I had a hard time keeping up what was going on this week, but I got caught up today as I got back in town last night. Today's been good, catching up on all the things that have transpired this week, and it's been a very week because what we want to talk about, at least starting off tonight. You guys saw the headline: "Is Trump fascist?" That's the $1 million question, because that's what we've been hearing for a long time. We've been hearing it for years now. Trump is fascist, Trump is a Nazi, Trump is Hitler, Trump is a threat to democracy, over and over again. But it sounds like something has changed. The rhetoric has changed. The tone has changed. President Joe Biden laid him on his victory and sat down with him. And it just seemed very odd for someone you think is Hitler,
Right. I mean, you don't sit down. You don't sit down if Hitler wins. You don't sit down with Hitler.
No.
It's interesting to me. It's interesting to me that they would go from that, and then it's gone. And you still have folks who say it. You still have folks who say it. And so the whole plan tonight is to look into that. Is he really fascist? Is he fascist? Really, what is fascism? And then who aligns more with fascism?
Yep. Yeah. So let's see. Where you want to start? You want to start the video? You want to start the definition first?
It's a good question. I think if the video is of people calling Trump fascist, we should start with the video.
Okay. All right. So let's start with the first video. I think it's the Charlemagne video.
Okay. Y'all forgive us for the
President-elect and former president, and Donald, congratulations. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So, welcome back.
much, and thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. And a transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Joe.
You're welcome.
When President-elect Donald Trump and President Joe Biden met at the Oval Office on Wednesday, it was all very, very genteel and affable. The two even shook hands. President Biden called for a peaceful transition of power.
Not everyone was happy about this, however. Some, like Charlemagne the God, even went as far as saying this was a betrayal of democratic values.
I just don't understand the White House visit. Now, granted, I'm glad it's a peaceful transition of power, but what happened to the threat of democracy talk? What happened to the fascist talk? By the way, I know I've said those things about Trump as well, but I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about his political opponents like President Biden. When they say it, it holds way more weight than me. I'm just trying to figure out, how do you go from he's an existential threat to democracy to welcome back?
He was happy too. He was happy. He was smiling. He was grinning. He was cheesing. Say cheese. He was cheesing, bro.
I'm just trying to figure out how. I understand President Biden believes in political norms, but damn.
Yeah, I think the response to Charlemagne the God there is that talk.
So, I mean, okay, man. Okay, you go first. You go first.
Now I'm saying, so how? And what happened to all the he's a fascist talk? What happened? I'll tell you what happened. They used that lie and they lost still. And then, all right, we tried. It didn't work. Let's let bygones be bygones. And because if they truly did believe it, which a lot of people do now, a lot of people do believe it. And you see those people out there on social media, they're losing their minds right now because they bought the lie and sold to them. But the people who were selling the lie didn't believe it. And it's obvious they didn't believe it because the way they're acting now. And they've totally switched up. So that was my initial thoughts of like, yeah, they played the game and it didn't work, and now they've moved on. So I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Man, my man over here talking like Gen Z, man. He said switched up. They switched up.
I switched up.
I mean, so yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think that it's really interesting. It's really interesting to see Charlemagne call that out because he knows we were going hard in the paint. We were going hard in the paint, and now we acting like we didn't say this stuff. And it's tough for the people who really believe it because they must be looking at Biden and other Democrats saying, well, we had the pitchforks and the torches out, and you guys are acting like this is just cool.
Yep.
That doesn't make any sense. We feel like either you're selling out or you played us. And I think that they're probably going to say, you guys are selling out. You're not going as hard as you would say out your mouth. You're not doing what you said out your mouth. The reality is they never believed it. They never believed it. But we got one more video, right? Is that a similar one?
It is, but of course it's The View, and which means it's going to be very entertaining and nonsensical, but they do provide very good clips. And so we can just play it to the end of Ana Navarro. I think she's the second woman who speaks. And after she speaks, then we can cut it.
If you're over 40 and you're not dermaplaning, you're making
Forgive
a big
us for the
mistake.
ad.
This thing has completely won the battle with facial hair.
Hello, I'm over 40.
So Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski have spent a long time warning about you-know-who poses a dangerous threat to the future of democracy. So this morning, they surprised a lot of viewers when they talked about how they spent the weekend. Take a look.
Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show. has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. For nearly 80 million Americans, election denialism, public trials, and January 6th were not as important as the issues that moved them to send Donald Trump back to the White House with their vote. Joe and I realize it's time to do something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
So is this the approach that is going to work with a gentleman who campaigned on calling the media the enemy of the people?
So I actually think it was the right thing to do. And I've heard a lot of folks on the left coming after Joe and Mika saying, don't normalize him. Well, 75 million plus American voters normalized Donald Trump by making him President-elect Donald Trump. In this notion that if sort of the resistance who opposes him stayed in their safe bubbles, sat on their hands and just complained about him for 4 years, that would have a bigger impact than sitting down. I talked to Mika, actually. They met with him for over 90 minutes. They raised very valid concerns. They both see themselves as opinion journalists who want to actually be able to engage the person that they talk about every day, actually be able to raise issues with them when they're concerned. And in the same way that I thought it was right for Joe Biden to meet with him, and that I think it's right for presidents to meet with foreign adversaries to try to find diplomatic relations and ways to bring people together and solve problems, this is absolutely the right thing. I would sit down with Donald Trump. I would interview Donald Trump. And I'll go a step further. I hope good people work for him. We need to stop demonizing people because they supported a man who just became president of the United States. We should hope good people are around him and smart journalists are challenging him.
Well, look, there is a sobering reality, right? Which is that we have, in 2016, I think people voted for the unknown and voted thinking maybe the gravitas of the office was going to change him. It didn't. In 2024, people voted knowing who he was. And nothing that he is doing, as concerning as I find it and disturbing as I find it, should be shocking, because he told us he was going to do these things. Yeah. He was surrounded by the people he's appointing, and he is keeping to his word. And people voted for him knowing that. And so it's hard. It's a sobering truth. It's hard to reconcile that with what we have been doing for the last 8 years. I will never sit with him. I don't think I'm gonna have to. I don't think I'm gonna have to make the decision, because I don't think I'm ever going to get invited. And listen, the truth of the matter is, as we know around this table, that it is hard to criticize and denounce the abuses of power by Donald Trump when he is president. We have been there before. Mm-hmm. It means threats. It means death threats. It means retribution against your family. It means crazy things showing up at your house. It means lawsuits. It means all sorts of things. We've done it before, and if we have to do it again, we will do so again. I think there's a lot of people who are probably looking at what Joe and Mika did and find it opportunistic. There are people who change their stripes, or maybe their spots, I should say today, depending on who is in power and what benefits them. I don't know that that's what they are doing. Mm-hmm. And to me, it's a to be determined situation, because right now it's the transition. Mm-hmm. We don't know what he's going to do as president. We don't know what they're going to do if he commits abuses of power as president. So, you know, everybody has to live with their decision. Everybody has to look at themselves in the mirror. I'm good.
I absolutely think it was the right decision. And
Man. You go first, man. What's your takeaway from that?
Okay, so first of all, I can't remember the lady's name who gave a balanced and level-headed take on this.
Amazingly, she's the conservative on the show.
Right. I mean, it's interesting because you remember Candace Cameron Bure used to be the conservative on the show. She used to be the conservative on the show. And I watched a video of her talking about how she wound up on the show and why she left. The reason that they have that token conservative is so that they don't look entirely biased, but somebody like Candace who's going to push back real hard is not a great person for them.
Yeah.
they don't like that person. I think it was Meghan McCain was the next one. I personally, I align more with Candace Cameron than I do with a Meghan McCain. I think Meghan McCain is John McCain, rest his soul, was more of a centrist. There are a couple things that he voted against that he really made me mad. But I think that Ana Navarro is incredible to me to hear her take, because it reveals that she really does look at him 100% as the enemy. She looks at him as the enemy. You don't sit down with the enemy. You don't make deals with the enemy. That's the attitude that she has.
Yeah. That's the attitude you'd expect from someone who believes the rhetoric.
Right.
Right. And that's basically what Charlemagne was saying. And so that goes back to what they were responding to, which was Joe Scarborough and them at Morning Joe going down to Mar-a-Lago and sitting down with Trump. Not as a taped interview, but just to meet with him and talk. And I'll be honest, I don't believe for 1 second the conversation they said happened. Like, yeah, we talked to him about our concerns and we talked to him about this. That didn't happen. That didn't happen. That a kid, you went down there to make sure that y'all was good, because now that he's in power, you're afraid, right? That's what this was about. They were afraid of retribution because they've been dogging him out and lying for 8 years, at least the last 4, since he's been out of office. And now that he's back in, they're like, oh man, we got to go down there and make things right.
So that's what Ana Navarro is suspecting them of doing. I do believe they went and had that conversation. I do, in good faith, I believe they went and had that conversation because they recognize that this time is not like last time. This time, the majority of Americans decided this is who we want to be president, not just by electoral college, but by popular vote. And the reason I believe that they were trying to open the lines of communication again is because what's going on over at MSNBC? MSNBC ain't doing so hot.
No, they are doing really, really bad right now.
Really bad.
They're struggling.
And so they know that in order to maintain relevancy, because they didn't just, if you look at the numbers, it wasn't just conservatives. There aren't enough conservatives to put him in office like that. He won the middle, and he probably won some people who were just left of center because they were tired of the craziness.
Yeah, I think he got a lot of people that were left of center. That's why you saw New York and California swing. I mean, even though he didn't win those states, but the gaps that he closed and the counties that went from blue to red, those aren't all of a sudden. I mean, yeah, he got people that were left of center.
Yeah.
Because they're tired of the status quo and the progressive nonsense and the horrible immigration and crime that are that's in their areas now. Yeah, people who are dealing with real issues, and not to mention the economy. Yeah, they voted. He got a lot of people across a diverse platform, no matter how you look at it, from a class issue, race, social, economic, across the board. I mean, he did well and he won. I found it interesting that they said that they were going to go and sit down with him and open communication now. He's been the leading Republican candidate for basically 4 years now. And now you decide to sit down? Why not sit down with him beforehand over the last 4 years and talk about it and talk to him and talk about what he plans to do? And why have this? We're not going to even talk to this guy, even though he's the leading Republican candidate, even though he's the former president, we're not going to even talk to him. We're just going to talk about him. But now that he's won a second election, it's like, well, instead of just talking about him, we figured we just go and talk to him. I'm like, now? Why now? That's why I don't believe that conversation happened, because they could have had that conversation before he won.
Well, here's
why
why
talk to him now? Go ahead.
Here's why I think they talked to him now. Here's why I think they did. Because before the election, there wasn't the indisputable evidence that they were so far off of where Americans are. I don't think it was not anywhere close to. Honestly, I didn't know he was going to. I thought he was going to win big. I thought it was going to be decided that night. I got that feeling closer to the election. I didn't know he was going to win that big to where he even won the popular vote. And I think it was resounding. It was overwhelmingly obvious that Americans were saying, the stuff y'all are talking, we don't agree with you. We vehemently disagree with you. And we're putting him back in office. And not only that, we're going to give Republicans the House and the Senate.
Yeah.
And I think that sends a message. And so they know now, okay, we can't, and they even said it, we can't ignore 80 million Americans. And MSNBC knows that because their ratings are trash. They know that now.
But they're a news organization. These are journalists. Why ignore the former president and leading Republican candidate to be president? Why ignore him for 4 years? You talked about him every day. You know, they dogged him out, they trashed him, but they never would sit down and talk with him, right? They could have had that conversation long before now. So to do it now, because you're kind of forced to, I don't know, it kind of says a lot. To me, it says where MSNBC is, which we know where they are. But the fact that they've had this position of not talking to the former president, that's just bad journalism. And that's why they were so far off, right? They didn't listen to him. They didn't listen to the people. They didn't listen to anybody. They stayed in their progressive, elitist, New York, coastal LA bubbles, right? And they realized, oh man, we're wrong. And so, now it's like, okay, let's go and open up a line of communication. Yeah, they are, as you said, they are grasping for straws because their ratings are struggling. I forgot what the number is, but Megyn Kelly was talking about it, and she was saying there's a certain number in TV where you don't even remember. She said you just basically call it a scratch. I think it's like 70,000 viewers or something like that. They're almost there. They're almost at a scratch where they don't even report the numbers. That's how bad they are. Yeah. It's getting bad. Not only because I think it's twofold. I think people realize that they were lied to for a long time. And then it's also some people who have checked out, like on the left, right? They bought the rhetoric, they bought the lies. America voted for them voted for him. And now they basically said, I don't care anymore. America's gone. I don't need to listen to Morning Joe anymore because what does it matter? And those people have just walked away. And I'll say this because it was not just MSNBC. I forgot his name. It's one of the more popular progressive YouTubers, 2 million, 3 million followers. And a couple of days after the election, he made a video saying, hey guys, basically he was bleeding subscribers, including paid subscribers. People were just leaving. They were checking out. And I'm like, yeah, because you were wrong and you lied for 2 years or 4 years. Like at some point, people, why would they follow you if you're not credible, right? If you're not giving informed takes, right?
Oh,
why would
hey.
I know. I like how I snuck that in there.
Yeah, I like that. I see what you did there.
And so those people have either checked out or because they're just so distraught, or they've checked out because they realize that the people they were following and listening to have no clue what they're talking about. And so, that's where we are, man. That is where we are.
I
think so. Go ahead.
I think that's well said. You said a very key word there, credibility. And that's why I think that they really did go and have that conversation with Trump, and it really did go that way, because essentially what has happened is they realized that they lost credibility, and they are trying to get it back. They're trying to get that credibility back with the electorate because they've lost the trust of the electorate. And so they know that, hey, if we keep treating Donald Trump like he is anathema, like he's Hitler, nobody's going to listen to us because they don't agree with us anymore, and they don't care what we say. So we have to go and essentially the people made them listen to Donald Trump because they weren't going to listen to Donald Trump. That's why they didn't have that conversation. The people made them listen to Donald Trump because the people are checking out and it's getting ready to start hitting them pocketbooks because when the ratings are that low, you can't have a show because the ad dollars are not coming in. You can't have a show. And so I think that they're waking up and smelling the coffee. Quite honestly, I'm surprised that I'm not hearing anything about The View being in trouble.
Yeah, I would have to see what their numbers are or someone talk about it. I know right after the day after the election, they had their like most highest rated show in like 10 years. But that was because people like us was tuning in to see what they were going to say. They had a lot of hate watchers that day, you know, like because a lot of people wanted to see them eat crow, see how they were going, you know, react to the news of, you know, Donald Trump being reelected because they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome so bad, and so it was like quality TV. Like I'm checking in to see it burn down, but I would be interested to see if those ratings have continued since that show the day after the election.
Right.
Yeah. And so, man, when you said credibility, it made me think about Morning Joe did lose a lot of credibility. Joe Scarborough, and when in his defense of Biden and his how adamant he was about Biden being cogent. He's more than cogent. This version of Biden is the best Biden ever. Like, like you just lied to everybody. And it was just so obvious that they were lying and covering. Like you have no credibility now. And now you're trying to gain it back by going and talking to Trump and trying to open that line of communication again. Because it's just so obvious that they were just lying to the public and covering. And so it goes back to kind of what this video is about is Trump a fascist? Because that's what they've been telling us for 4 years, you know? And so far, like what Charlamagne was saying, the way Biden has reacted and welcoming Trump in, and the way Morning Joe and they went down there in their own, like, it's one thing to say we're gonna go down there and do an interview. This is a closed door meeting. They're going to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump. I don't know if you do that if you believe the guy's really Hitler.
Of course not. Definitely not. I mean, you know, you think he's Hitler maybe a little bit more than you think that Joe Biden is cogent. You know what I'm saying?
Cogent. More than cogent.
Cogent. This is the best version of Joe Biden that's ever been. Yeah, I mean, I think that you've got to basically go back and say, all right, guys, maybe we got a little out of hand in saying that he was a fascist. We're gonna go have a conversation with him. You know, they're saying, oh, we don't see eye to eye with him on a lot of things, and they were saying that obviously to make clear that we're not switching sides. We're just going to have a conversation, which I actually think it was crazy, personally, to see Ana Navarro still not be able to acknowledge that just maybe, your extreme take on this guy is not a reasonable take. It's not a reasonable take. And 80 million people don't think it's a reasonable take. I'm not saying that when 80 million people think something is okay, that means it's okay. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that maybe try to understand how those 80 million people got there. I've had to do that. I've had to do that over the years. When
I had to do it in 2016.
Right.
You know?
I did too. It was a struggle for me. I'm trying to understand how on earth did we decide this was the guy? How did we decide this was the guy? That's where I was back then. You know, but it's kind of like It's kind of like in I think it was Return of the Jedi. I can't remember if it was Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back, where Luke was like, I feel the conflict in you. And Darth Vader says, there is no conflict. This year, there was no conflict.
There was no conflict.
This year, it was like, oh, I'm hitting the button. So, yeah, there was no conflict this time. I had conflict the last 2 times. There was no conflict this time. There was less conflict in 2020. No conflict this time.
Yeah. Hey, put up Samuel Adler's comment. He has a good comment. He says, "Cry wolf first. All else fails, go visit the wolf."
Take him some treats or something, man. Take the wolf some treats. Well said. We'll give away our position on this, but yeah, it was crying wolf, and a lot of people, 80 million people, knew that it was crying wolf. I think that's one of my favorite things about this election was that all of the rhetoric, the majority of Americans rejected it. So you had how many years? 8 years to talk all that stuff. 8 years to talk all that stuff and to have your hair on fire and act like this dude's the biggest threat to democracy. And people see through it now. I am so happy that people see through it now. And now we can get back to having more reasonable conversations, hopefully.
Yes. I'll be honest, man. I miss the old days of politics where we argued over, when it was liberalism versus conservatism, the old days, the good old days, right? It wasn't this far left progressivism. It wasn't, the woke stuff, the cultural stuff. It was, we disagreed on what the role of government was and what was the best direction to go in and what was the best way to solve these problems. But at least both sides of the aisle were sane, and I would like to get back to that.
Yes. When Reagan could make some jokes about his opponent and you didn't have people on the other side, he's, that when there were cordial and funny jokes and we could be normal human beings to each other for the most part. But I think that back then, Republican and Democrat still had more shared values back then than they do now. Cultural
and I think
Marxism.
This election showed we're not as divided as it appears we are. I think most people just want basic common sense governance, and that's what they did. That's what the Democrats this election didn't understand, right? Clarissa has a really, really good comment. If you guys can get that up. Also, shout out to Liam. Liam is behind the scenes producing the show tonight. If you guys remember from election night, he produced the show. So we got Liam behind the scenes. So shout out to him.
The man.
Yep. But Clarissa, she makes a good point. She says they were opinion journalists, air quotes, not real journalists. They weren't going to talk to Trump because they were hoping he would go away. So it wasn't real until it was real.
Boom, that's exactly right.
Absolutely.
100% right.
Yeah. I just don't know how you wake up I get ratings. I get money. I just don't know how you wake up every morning, supposed to be a journalist on a news organization, and sit down and then just lie and slant people to death. I just don't get it.
Even opinion journalists, right? Even an
opinion journalist, you can still be fair and open in your opinion, right? I mean, we're opinion journalists. We're giving our opinions tonight, but you can be fair and open and honest. I wouldn't sit up here and go, Joe Biden is a communist. He's a communist and he's a threat to democracy. Because he's not. I wouldn't believe that, And so I'm not going to get on here and say that no matter how many clicks and likes it might drive up. I'm not going to do that, But they did it every day. Just lied. Just, you know. But we talk about Trump as a fascist. What is a fascist, though? What is fascism? You know, to say whether he is or isn't, I think we need to look at the definition of fascism and see, does Donald Trump meet the definition?
Right.
Good evening, Future. Thanks for joining us.
Put Future's comment up there.
Yes.
We trolling. We trolling.
Yeah, we
tonight.
already admitted we're being petty. Yeah, we already admitted it.
Y'all know most of the time I'm trying to wear a suit, but tonight we being petty, man. Hey, appreciate that, Trap. Appreciate that. Yeah, y'all. I got it in the chat, but if you wind up wanting one of these, you know, if you're bold enough to wear one of these in public, you know, you can do that.
It's also different. Yeah, it's also different colors and also different other types of merch if you guys are interested. So,
yeah.
I saw someone posted a picture of the black one, the black hoodie. It looked good. Yeah. It looked good. I was like, man, I should have got black.
you needed to have that bright red so they all know, so they know. Just I hope you got hands, because if you wear that out in public, you might have somebody try to get stupid on you, and I hope you got hands, man.
Yeah, I will say this though. Where I live, you need them more than I will.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
in Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
I live in Auburn, Alabama, where after the election, the college students went down and celebrated and was singing the national anthem wearing and clothed in American flags. So it's a little bit different where I live.
That is, as Juicy Smouye would say, that's MAGA country.
Oh, it is, man. I mean, only thing we were missing was Lee Greenwood singing and a bald eagle flying overhead. That's all that was missing.
Man, that's amazing, man. That's amazing. That gives me hope for old Auburn down there. I think that was not happening in ATL. I can tell you that. There was nothing like that happening around here.
Oh, I know, because I was there with you doing the live show, and it was not. That was not.
Inauguration day is probably going to be another big sales day for us. Day after the election and inauguration day probably going to be the two big days.
No, I think he's saying we need to go to DC and be on the corner.
Ooh, man, that would be amazing.
T-shirts.
Oh, y'all buy a bunch of T-shirts up and send us to DC. Give us enough money to fly up to DC so we can sell some unburdened merch on the street during the inauguration.
What's hilarious is that we have unburdened merch before we have Informed Takes merch.
It's true. I had the idea and I had to make it happen, man. Yeah, I got to get some Informed Takes merch, but this was a moment we had to capitalize. I had the idea for the joke, and it was one of those. It's like, you can't sit on this. This is a moment. This is a moment that you gotta have your fun right now before the moment's over. So there will be a moment for
people don't know. So
stuff.
Election night, we live streamed for 6 hours all through the night until they called it. We got off the air probably about 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. By 2:30, that link was live with this merch for sale. It was up and going.
I had that idea. So me and Kev cut the stream. We're sitting here and I'm eating my dinner. I literally didn't get to eat dinner until 2 a.m. And I remember sitting there and we're watching NBC and we're watching their reaction to the election. And I just had the idea, and I immediately opened up my design program and started designing it. And I was like, you know what? That looks pretty good. And then I went ahead and put it up in the shop. And I'm like, if nobody else gets this, I'm gonna get it. But we're gonna see if other people want it too.
Yep.
Yeah. So y'all been great. Yeah. We appreciate y'all buying the merch and having a good time with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so let's look at the definition of fascism so we can make this determination and answer this question, is Trump a fascist? So,
Yes.
all right, here we go. And this is the Merriam-Webster definition. Let me see. It says a populist political philosophy, movement, or regime, such as that of. Can you make it bigger? I'm having a hard time seeing it.
I can read it real quick if you want. I can see it
Yeah,
pretty
go ahead.
quick.
You can see it. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, cool. So, a populist political philosophy, movement, or regime, such as that of the fascisti, that exalts nation and often race above the individual. That is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader, and that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of opposition. So, okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so you got populist, you've got state or identity group over individual. And let's see, you got autocratic government, so authoritarian rule, and you got the suppression of opposition. That's kind of what fascism is, right? All right. So I think we'll agree that the MAGA movement was a populist movement, right?
Yes.
It was a populist movement, but at the same time, I wouldn't say it put the state over the individual.
No.
I wouldn't go there. We would say, and this is the thing about America and conservatism. Like, you can say make America great again. You could say we love America. But it's not about bowing to this state called America. It's about the ideals in which America represent, which is individual. And so if you're calling the MAGA movement a fascist movement, you don't understand what Make America Great Again is, or what conservatism in general is representing when it is talked about America and make America great again. There's not some worship to the state. No, we don't pretty much like the state.
Right. We view the state as a necessary evil.
Yes.
And that's not to disparage everybody in government necessarily. It is to say that an important thing to understand about a conservative view of government, which is the view generally of the founding fathers, is that government is for restraining evil. That's what government is for. And the reason that we have to have that is because people are inherently bad. That is the position. So that is a very important thing, and this may be something that we'll have to touch on in another show, but it's very important to understand that the nation was founded in a Judeo-Christian worldview that understands that man is not inherently good. Man is inherently bad. And government has to be there to restrain the evil of man. That is its primary function. And that is why we think that government is a necessary evil. It's a necessary evil because man is by nature evil, not good. And it is by much work and self-reflection and a lot of other things that man can operate in a way that is good.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that defunding the police doesn't lead to less crime? Because I thought that's what I thought. I thought we defund the government, we defund the police, that, people would just be good and free and to do. Are you telling me that's not the case?
I'm sorry. I hate to break it to you. I hate to break it to you. The defunding the police is not going to get you to paradise, because it is not that there's just a bunch of good people out there who need to not be oppressed, and they would make better choices, or they wouldn't go to jail if people weren't specifically targeting them. We're not saying that the police are always good. We're saying that the reality is that a lot of people out there who do not restrain their passions because man is inherently evil, they are going to do evil, and you need the police there. So the idea that you're going to get rid of government and everything's going to be cool, it doesn't work. It's never worked in human history, and it's not just that it's never worked, because we're not looking at what works purely and what doesn't work purely is what's called pragmatism. I will argue that Trump is a pragmatist. He's not actually a conservative. He's a pragmatist.
He's not.
But when we look at world history and we see that never, ever has it worked without government because people are inherently bad, it's never going to work, because we're stating there is an objective truth. It is observable. Even if you want to say, hey, I am not a Christian. I don't believe what you believe about human beings. That's fine. Did you have to teach your kid how to lie? No, you didn't have to teach your kid how to lie.
No.
My daughter learned how to lie on her own. I would venture to say she did not have to be taught how to lie. She did it out of nature to get something that she wanted. And I remember the first time she lied to me directly. She was like 2 years old. And I make a point to never lie to my kids. I make a point to never lie to my kids. She did that, and I took note of it, and it was a moment to reflect. It's like, this is what the scripture is pointing to when it says that we're inherently evil. We're born in sin. We don't have to be taught how to do bad things. So that's one of the reasons why we don't do fascistic government, because we know the bad people are in government too. We're all bad. We're all bad. Where are the angels you want to have run the government?
Yeah, that's why you have checks and balances within the government, because people are in the government. That's why you have an armed citizenry, because we know that power in the government's hands is still power in people's hands who are flawed and evil and sinful. So yeah, our whole thing is to limit evil.
Yes.
That is the whole premise of it. And so government has a role, and it's a necessary role, like you said. But this idea that we're worshiping the state, or the state comes before all, I think that's more on the left side of the aisle than the right. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yep.
That idea of the state being supreme is not an element of the political right in America today.
Right.
And so from that standpoint, I don't think he meets the definition of a fascist. The other part was authoritarian. I mean, like you said, Trump to me he's a pragmatist. I don't see him as very authoritarian. Now, if you work for him, like any boss, CEO, he expects you to do what he says, or whatever the goal of the company is, or whatever the goal of his administration is, he expects you to carry that out. That's not authoritarian. And we have checks and balances within our system of government to limit authoritarianism. It can't completely take it away, but it can severely limit it. And we're going to talk about ways in which the current administration that's going out was way more authoritative than, or was authoritative in some ways that would meet the definition of fascism more so than Trump in the way he kind of views government, I guess you can say. What were your thoughts? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that you can look at his actions And there are a lot of things that he could have done if he really wanted to operate as an authoritarian. There were things that are actually granted to him within the executive powers in the Constitution that he did not do. He did not go after Hillary Clinton when he won the first time. He had her dead to rights. He could have went after, I've said this before, I might have even said it last show. He had her dead to rights. He could have went after, and he didn't do it. He had every right under the executive authorities of the president to do it. He did not do it. There are a number of other things that he didn't do. There are some things that he did, though. I will say, one of the things that I think is important for us to do on this show, one of the reasons that when Kevin asked me to do this show with him that I agreed, is because I think it's really important for some folks to be out there calling balls and strikes, no matter what side of the aisle you find yourself on. Be willing to call out your own side as well as the other side.
Yeah.
So there are two things that he did that I do think were authoritarian moves. I don't think that his intent in those was to be authoritarian, but they were authoritarian by classification. One, banning bump stocks. He banned bump stocks. He was tossing something to people after a mass shooting, and he wanted to give them something. I think it was actually him being a pragmatist in doing that. He was looking for something that he could do that would show that he was trying to take some kind of action, because emotions were running high and there was a large portion of the population that wanted to see something happen. Because, I hate to say it, but most people don't have a very well-formed, systematic view of politics. They don't have a well-formed political philosophy. So when something like that happens, they want to see something happen. Bump stocks was one of the things. Any thoughts on that one, Kev?
So I'm not the biggest gun enthusiast. I didn't have an issue with the bump stock ban, only because until that incident, I had never really heard of bump stock. And if my understanding is, it allows, so fully automatic weapons aren't legal in the country. So to me, if you can modify something in a way that gives it a fully automatic element or likeness, to me, that's just a loophole. We should just have fully automatic weapons then, if that's the case. And so to me, if we're not allowed to have fully automatic weapons, which could be something that's up for debate anyway, but if that's the case, we're not allowed to have those, then modifying a weapon to give you a sense of that element, to me, I don't think that should be, to me, that goes against the spirit of the law in the first place. And so that's just kind of where I stood in that. It's because it's something else that's very popular now that they're doing to, it's some kind of clip. It's something they're doing to weapons now, to guns, that are actually making them fully automatic. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, some people it's called a switch. They'll put it in like a Glock.
Switch.
And it'll make it operate more like an automatic weapon, and it's essentially illegal. I don't know if it's actually technically illegal. It won't be allowed. They don't allow it at gun ranges and stuff like that. But I would argue, and Liam, feel free to put up any comments that you want while we're talking about this stuff. Claire, yeah, absolutely. I think that
we definitely will.
We'll definitely do that, and I have the perfect guest that for us to bring on for that, a lawyer,
nice,
a good friend of mine. But so I think that the reason I think it was authoritarian is you got to think about the original intent of the Second Amendment. The original intent of the Second Amendment was to restrain government power.
Yes.
So that leads me to the conclusion, hey, I'm supposed to be able to use my Second Amendment right not only to defend myself, but also as a restraint of the potential for evil in the government. I love what you pointed out, that we're basically trying to restrain evil in all spheres of society. So we're trying to restrain evil among the individual citizens. We're trying to restrain evil in the folks who are in government so that they don't abuse their power. we are trying to even with the concept, because it's not actually a law. Actually, I guess I should say that it is a law, separation of church and state. We can get into that. It doesn't mean that that religion
doesn't mean
no,
secularism.
Right. It doesn't mean secularism. It doesn't mean that religion has no weight in how we make laws. It means that there's not an official state-sanctioned religion.
Yeah.
And so we have that limit there, so that the church doesn't wind up wielding undue power over the state, and that the state doesn't wind up, because it usually goes the other way, the state doesn't wind up wielding undue power over the church. It's both ways, because Church of England, you had that happen. The king started to wield power over the Church of England. The founding fathers saw that was a bad thing. They saw that state-sanctioned religion was a bad thing, so we try to restrain evil there. The Second Amendment is trying to give us a means to restrain evil in the government. So if I have to be able to deal with the power of the government, then that means that I need to be able to fight fire with fire. So if the government can get automatic weapons and I can't, that means they win.
Yeah. And Future made a good point, and he is right, that you can own fully automatic weapons is in most states, but there are certain licenses and hoops and background checks, and because I've had to sign for friends who were getting that type of stuff as an eyewitness to it. So you can, but it's just not. You're not going to walk in Walmart or any other gun shop or gun store and buy a fully automatic weapon, right?
No.
So it's one of those things where it's kind of like, I agree with you on that. That's the purpose of the Second Amendment. So it's one of those things of we're not going to have a Second Amendment conversation or a show tonight, but if that's the case, then fully automatic weapons you should be able to walk into a store and buy a fully automatic weapon, but the fact that you can't, and there's all restraint on that, to me, modifying to overcome that restraint of the law that's in place already, that can't be allowed either. Otherwise, you might as well just have the fully automatic streets. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
I'll say the bump stock. I don't know if you've ever fired a gun with a bump stock. I haven't, but I've seen it fired. I've seen it fired. Yeah. I've fired an automatic weapon, and it is correct that it is not technically illegal to have an automatic. Yes. If you want to have an automatic, basically the mechanism that makes it automatic has to have been made before 1986. And getting a hold of one of those, because that's when it was made illegal. Getting a hold of one of those is going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Hey, Future, I'm sorry.
I was wondering, you said it was a dude. I was like, I was pretty sure Future was a lady.
I didn't know.
Sorry about that, Future. Don't leave. Don't leave, Future. I knew you were a lady. I
didn't mean to use your wrong pronouns. I'm sorry.
Thank you for still loving us.
Can we change to Miss Future? So I just
Miss Future.
But no, from here on out, I know Future. I got you.
Noted. Yeah. So I agree with you though. If you're going to try to skirt around, should we not look at whether or not it's legal or not? I mean, I would love for us to take another look at that. I think that would be fantastic. I do think that there should be a way to ensure that people are not just going and buying a fully automatic weapon from Walmart. I don't know if I'm quite so extreme that they should be able to do that necessarily. Maybe somebody will change my mind, but I do think that that's an issue, and that's why I view it as a further encroachment. So I viewed that one as a little authoritarian. But let's jump to the second one. The second one I think that he did that was actually authoritarian. Man, what was that? I had it listed out.
It was working with social media companies to
yes,
basically get rid of misinformation around COVID.
Yes. So that actually, a lot of people may not know that, but Trump's administration was the first one to actually do that. Is that Fresca, man? You got to tell. Is that Fresca?
It is.
Future
not
asked
Fresca.
if that's some Fresca
I know,
that
this
Kevin's
is
drinking.
good old fashioned American lemonade.
That's good, man. That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. His administration was actually the administration that started that. A lot of people may not know that his administration did start pressuring social media companies not to post certain things on social media about COVID. Now, do I think that he had knowledge of it? I don't know, because I can imagine both scenarios. I can imagine certain people in the government operating without his knowledge in the executive branch, or even in law enforcement, which is technically still under the executive branch, to try to influence people. When the Twitter files came out, it was documented. They were the ones who started it, but Biden-Harris administration said, hold my beer. So they went way farther.
They ratcheted up. It went up a whole nother level once the Biden administration got in.
Yeah. Those are the only two
Okay.
that I know of that he did. Those are the only two things that I know of that he did that could really be called authoritarian. Anybody in the comments have something else? We are totally willing to hear it out. If you think there's something else, feel free to comment. But now we're going to start jumping to what did the Biden-Harris administration do, or Democrats in general? What did they do that aligned with fascism? So I'll let you take the first one, sir.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's a continuation of what you just said. The first one was what came out about how closely they were working with social media companies to get rid of voices and just comments on social media they didn't like or agree with regarding COVID, that they called misinformation. And it went so far as there was like a liaison to Twitter that would say, hey, this post, this account, the government was feeding Twitter the post they wanted taken down. It
was bad. It was real bad.
It was bad. It was real bad.
It wasn't even big accounts either. It wasn't even big accounts.
It
was like small accounts that they were going after.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of it was even doctors. There were doctors who were expressing an alternative opinion than what the CDC and the federal government was saying. And they were silencing these other doctors. These weren't even like Joe Blow conspiracy theory person or whatever. This is a doctor saying, hey, this is what we know. This is how viruses work. The masks aren't going to really help you much. And they were like censored for saying stuff like that.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah. And it was just wild how far they went to suppress anything that did not align with the government narrative. And this is the thing about our form of government and why a true authoritarian government can't really happen unless it is through a government corporate relationship, right? Because I remember Joe Biden was talking to social media companies. He said, you guys can do things we can't. Like your individual rights, your Bill of Rights they protect you from the government. They don't protect you from private companies, right? So we talk about freedom of speech. You can have freedom of speech in terms of the government can't, arrest you and throw you in prison for something you may say, but your job can fire you, and so with these social media companies being private companies, they don't have to honor your freedom of speech. They can say these are our rules, and they can kick you off. They can turn you down to where you don't show up in people's feed as much. They can do all of this stuff to suppress your speech, and you don't have a right against that. And so, but this is where the danger comes in when the federal government, when they're doing it on behalf of the government. So now the company is now doing something for the government that the government in and of itself can't do because of your rights. That's where the danger comes in. And that's what we saw during COVID. And that's what we saw. And this is a whole nother conversation about ESG, right? And these ESG scores these companies are getting from the government, and that score affects certain benefits. It affects lending. It affects a lot of things to where if you don't have a high enough score, you could be in trouble. And so the government is forcing companies to behave a certain way and in a way that may affect your rights. And so that is why this to me was a big deal, because how closely the government was working with. And we saw from Zuckerberg's testimony, not just working with, but pressuring these companies to take it down. Because if you don't suppress misinformation on your platform, or you don't suppress hate speech on your platform, the government, those tax incentives might not be so lucrative, And so there was ways of the government could reward or punish companies for not cooperating.
Yeah, they have a way. They have ways of making things painful for you, even if they can't necessarily legally punish you for not doing what they're asking. They have other ways to make things uncomfortable or painful. And so they were doing that. And I'm so thankful that Zuckerberg actually testified about it. Really thankful for Matt Taibbi, who was one of the big folks who broke the Twitter files for Barry Weiss at the Free Press, that they were giving him a voice around that. They were really put their journalistic outlet on the map, was the Twitter files, and Elon Musk buying Twitter. We would not have known if he didn't buy Twitter. That would not have come out.
Absolutely.
And I think it was fantastic to get to see that, to where it was incontrovertible. People couldn't say this didn't happen. It was well documented. There were receipts. And that was authoritarian. But, I'll point out another thing about that. It wasn't just the Biden-Harris administration that was pressuring social media to do that. The entire Biden presidency, the Democrats were pushing for social media companies to suppress speech. They've been pushing it ever since Biden took office. They actually were pushing it. They were pushing it slightly before that. They actually started talking some of that stuff back in 2016. They were mad about the misinformation that was coming out on Facebook, and it was people posting things that didn't really happen. Right? There are people posting things that didn't really happen. There was a lot of stuff that came out, and they were pushing for people to have their stuff silenced. They were pushing for the social media companies to start to curate and moderate the content at a level that just was not sustainable. Some of the things they were asking for, like, dude, there's no way you're going to have enough people at that company to watch that stuff. You're either going to have to hire a ton of people to do that, or you're going to have to have a really aggressive AI that's going through everything and flagging stuff. And I think both actually happened.
It did.
They had really
the
aggressive
AI is
bots.
Very annoying.
Very annoying. Oh my gosh, it was ridiculous.
AI can't determine jokes, and so you would joke about something, and then you would get banned for like a week or something because you made a joke. You
wind up in Facebook jail because you made a joke. Now, I found out that there were actually a lot of humans behind that too. They had hired a ton of people, and you see at these different companies, they were on the trust and safety team. Anytime you see a company that has a trust and safety team, generally that's where that came from. You start seeing these tech companies having trust and safety teams, and what they consider trust and safety tends to lean pretty hard left. So at Twitter, when Elon bought it, trust and safety team was big, and they had a ton of unilateral power within that company. He canned all of them.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Yeah, he did. I got to address Future because she's talking about my lemonade. She said it looked weak. And it's the thing. I'm not gonna argue. It is weak.
Snap.
On a diabetes scale, I judge things on a diabetes scale of how many toes you would lose by eating or drinking it. Like, hey, you drink something, it's like, man, that's 6 toes at least. Like that's sweet. I'm gonna be honest, man. You wouldn't lose no toes with this. You wouldn't. It's light. It's refreshing. Not very heavy.
I can't breathe, bro. I cannot breathe, bro. We need an official name for that. We're gonna call that the toe meter.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, man, you just like, oh man, that's about 3 toes. No, it's sweet, but it's only about 3 toes.
Man, I will. So okay. So I'm gonna ask you on the toe meter. What does Chick-fil-A lemonade score?
Oh, Chick-fil-A lemonade. I'm gonna be honest, lemonade is a 3 or 4. I mean, if Chick-fil-A lemonade has nothing on black people's Kool-Aid, you know what I'm saying? Like the way we make Kool-Aid or the way we make sweet tea in the South. Yeah, nah, Chick-fil-A ain't got nothing on that.
That's facts. That's facts. Yeah, Bojangles. I always say to people, Bojangles doesn't make sweet tea. They make syrup. They don't make sweet tea.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. So on that, so that's why Chick-fil-A can't be like a 6 or a 7 because it's other stuff that's above it.
That's okay. I respect that. Now y'all got to put up. You got Liam. You got to put up. Yeah, I want my lemonade up to the ankle. I'm dead, y'all. I'm dead, y'all.
You know what? I do too sometimes, but tonight I'm trying to do better, y'all. I'm trying.
That's good, man. That's good. I appreciate that.
I made it a little light and refreshing, and so yeah.
I need you around. We all need you around, Kev. Don't be drinking no 8-toe lemonade, man. Don't do that.
No, because you know what you do, right? When there's 8 toes, you put the ice in it, and you do this right here, and you let the ice melt down, then you sip on it.
Yeah,
and then you shake it some more. Because you just can't go drinking 8-toe level lemonade and Kool-Aid like that. Just straight, nah. You gotta let the ice melt in it a little bit.
That's right. I mean, man, you are killing me, man. You are killing me. I've never heard anybody say anything like that. You killing me, man. I will say though, I agree that Chick-fil-A lemonade is probably about a 4. There's a lot of sugar. There's a lot of sugar in it. But one of the things I appreciate about Chick-fil-A lemonade is that it's way more lemonade. It's way more lemon than it is sugar in that thing.
Exactly. That's why it's because when I think about Chick-fil-A lemonade, I don't think about sweetness. I think about because it's tart.
Yeah, I mean it's like you take a sip of that and the Chick-fil-A cow comes out of nowhere and punch you in the mouth. Bow! Like that's how hard that stuff hits. I was like, give it to me straight, man. Give it to me straight. That's my stuff, man. I want all the lemons. All the lemons.
You right, Future. That full sugar stuff will have you out here tweaking. It will.
Yeah. You can't do that full sweet. Not in the South. I don't know if the formula's different, like up north or anything, but in the South you can't get that full. You can't get that full stuff.
Hey, Tom, say RFK gonna saving toes. Absolutely. He is coming in to save some toes.
Coming in hot. He coming in hot. I remember when Michelle Obama was talking about making it illegal to sell super sugary drinks and stuff, and Americans was just like, hey, come and take it. Come and take it from me. And we super fat, and we over here like, you can take my guns, but you can't take my Pepsi.
Exactly. And RFK, he's not either. He's just gonna make sure that can we go back to like pure cane sugar? That's all I want.
I would love.
Can we
that.
get away from the corn syrup and the high fructose corn syrup and just go back to cane sugar? Can we do that?
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And real quick on that, okay? Because I've thought about this, right? I've thought a lot about this because I do try to have a systematic political philosophy, right? I've thought, okay, so if you have the FDA, and
right now I'm like, hey, all the crazy stuff that we got in the food, what's the FDA doing? Like, what they even doing? Like, why we even have an FDA if they can put all this crazy stuff in the food? Okay.
Yeah.
But I think to myself, okay, if the job of government is to restrain evil, and people can put stuff in your food that's very harmful, right? Like, we don't allow people to put poison in food.
Exactly.
But if we can determine if you're putting this stuff in food, that this is harmful. This is really harmful stuff, and people don't know that it's harmful. I think that it's fair. It's fair to say the government is protecting protecting your person against harm, is restraining evil from people who would put whatever they want in your food and don't care as long as they make a profit. I think that there's room for that, and that's not authoritarian, because I don't want them putting this crazy stuff in the food. I don't want it to be okay for them to put all this nonsense in the food.
Yeah, yeah. And Logan, you're right. This episode has taken a turn, a hard turn.
Well, we over here talking about the toe meter. Liam said that RFK needs to institute the toe meter on the drinks, man. He needs to put the toe meter.
That's what we need. That's what we need.
Man, Liam bringing real value, man. Liam, you're not allowed to go off to college, man. We need you.
Nope.
They're gonna have to remote produce when he goes to college. You're gonna have to remote produce. All right, so
I feel you, Tom. I feel you. Yeah, sugar's an addictive drug. We all know that, and that's what I'm trying to cut back. I did the carnivore diet for a while. I'm trying to get back on it, but the hardest part about the carnivore diet is that initial cutting your addiction to sugar and carbs. And so I just got a little bit, just a little bit.
I respect that. I respect
that.
Next
but
thing.
if Trump was a fascist, that's what he would do. He would ban sugary drinks, and I don't think he's going to do that.
Right.
I don't think
right. That's. I was mad. Okay, I was mad when Michelle Obama started talking that stuff, because I'm like, hey, that's authoritarianism. You can warn people that it's got too much sugar, right? But I'm with you.
Yeah.
Just make them use cane sugar. Tell them to stop using that crazy stuff. Make them use cane sugar. I'm not mad at that. But Michelle Obama need to go on somewhere telling me I can't have a soda every now and again.
Tom. I love Mountain Dew Baja Blast from Taco Bell. That stuff is so good, man. I don't know what's in it. I don't know how many toes you'll lose from it. I just know that I'm down with it.
Man.
And that's the only place you can get it.
They need to call that Big Back juice. That ain't nothing but Big Back juice. That's what that is, man. I see that stuff and I'm like, man, I
juice.
I could sniff that stuff and start gaining weight. 8,
man,
8,
see, that's
9, 10
that's why
toe.
people come here, for this type of insight.
It's Friday night. You gonna get some sugar with your lemons tonight.
All right. So next point on terms of how the Democrats have kind of led in more of a fascist manner. And it goes to the first point. When the Biden administration tried to start that Ministry of Truth, they tried to add a whole nother department to the government to regulate truth. What is true and what's not. So, and what's not is going to get banned, according to them. That, oh my goodness. That is, thankfully the Supreme Court shot it down and said, nah, you can't do this. But they literally tried to start a whole department of the government called the Ministry of Truth. Like, is this 1984? Like,
boom.
We are losing our mind. So when we talk about who's fascist, who's authoritarian, the way the Democrats have acted is way more authoritarian and fascist, if we want to use that word, than anything we've seen from the Trump administration. Any thoughts on the Ministry of Truth?
Oh yeah, I mean, so the official name of the department was the the Disinformation Board, I think is what they called it. Mayorkas was
was supposed to be over it. Let me see. Disinformation.
Yeah, look that up.
board.
Drew, no, I have not seen James's podcast today on the woke right. But I have heard him talk about it in the past, and I agree with him and I agree with Shenvi. I think they both have identified the problem correctly in terms of the woke right. And I don't even want the whole conversation. That's a whole nother show. First of all. But just talking about what is the woke right, we'll be here all night. Yeah. But no, I didn't. I haven't seen Lindsay's podcast. I'm going to check it out tomorrow.
Yeah, and we are already actually planning. We're planning a show to talk about that, and are lining up one, maybe two guests. Hopefully, we can get both of them on here to talk about that. We're going to try to have a couple of pretty decent sized names on the show to talk about it. So so it was called the Disinformation Governance Board. So it was headed by Secretary Mayorkas, and he was grilled on it in front of Congress, as he should have been. He absolutely should have been grilled on this. I cannot believe that the Biden administration would have the unmitigated gall to try to start a disinformation board, which you were absolutely right to call it a ministry of truth, because that's what it is. That's what it was anyway, because it was short-lived. They started it. They tried to start it in quiet, and it got blown up. Oh, snap. Oh, snap. He refilling the lemonade. Kevin didn't make enough lemonade to get through that subject.
Let's go.
He got more lemonade, y'all. He got more lemonade than Beyonce. Oh my gosh, y'all are the best audience ever, man.
Absolutely.
But I'm just saying that this whole idea that you're gonna have a board that decides what is disinformation and what is not disinformation, and the government is going to decide that. It's such a clear First Amendment violation. I don't know why they ever thought they were going to get away with that, and that lets you know how hard left that administration was. It was super hard left.
Yeah. In terms of believing in the state being supreme, which is an element of fascism. Everything's about the state. Everything is about the government. And they act as if that's the case, you know? Yeah. And so, that whole thing, I couldn't believe they tried to do it either. But like you said, it just shows kind of where they were.
Yeah.
The next thing they did was, and this shocked me, when they weaponized the Department of Justice to go out to pro-lifers, the level, I'm trying to remember the name of the act that they passed. They passed an act which was basically saying you can't do certain things around abortion clinics, right?
Which is ridiculous.
And then they were charging people with violating this act. And they were like going to like just unrealistic levels to arrest and prosecute people for these quote unquote crimes, and holding people in prison without bail, people facing long jail sentences. Like, what did they do? It's like they stood too close to an abortion clinic with signs, you know, and it just didn't make sense. It was called, hold on, let's see. I'm looking at the article right here. Name of the act. I know it's in the article. The FACE Act, Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, right? And so it was designed to levy unusual kind of punishment against pro-life activists in a particular, and basically it was saying the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. That just makes no sense. But basically, you can't block an entrance, which no one was doing that anyway. But they put in these certain rules to say you can do certain things or distance of an abortion clinic, and they were going after people for violating this law. And imagine, you're a pro-life organization, and this new law comes out, and it says you can't do something within 30 feet, and you're at 25 feet, and they come out, and next thing you know, the FBI is at your house, full tactical gear, telling you to come. Like, it was so over the top, and really what it was they were trying to intimidate pro-life people, because otherwise, no sense the levels in which they were going. Why would you hold somebody without bail for that crime? Why is somebody facing 10 years in prison for that crime? It just made no sense unless you're trying to bully and scare people into be acting in a way that you want them to. And it wasn't that's not suppressing evil. Talking about the role of governments to suppress it. They're not suppressing evil in that. They are being draconian. They are tyrannian. And so that's why I added that one to the list, because it was so over the top. And we talk about in our justice system that the punishment must fit the crime. That was not the case with this, and it was clearly a level of injustice from the government to basically bully pro-life people. So, any thoughts?
100%. And think about how that contrasts with some of the other things that they wanted on the left, right? They wanted certain people for violent offenses to be let out. They wanted those people to be let out. But they want the pro-life protester. They want to throw the book at them. Not just throw the book at them, to write new stuff in the book that's even harsher and throw the book at them. That's what they wanted. And so it's a level of ridiculousness that shows clearly that there's animus there. It's not just the desire to let people go into a clinic. There is animus against the people who they're writing the law to try to target.
Yeah, and especially this too. If you ever seen videos, or if you ever seen anybody outside of an abortion clinic, it's not a protest as much as it is they're trying to get the attention of the woman to have a conversation with her to save her baby. That's not like a hateful thing. They're holding up signs, and they're talking, loudly to get her attention, to get her to look, to have a conversation with her, to offer her other options. That's the whole point of it, and the fact that they felt that needed to be legislated and penalized so harshly, it just lets you know not only their position in terms of how pro-abortion they are, but also what lobbyist groups were in their pockets. Because Planned Parenthood had a lot to do with that, because that's the last thing they want you to do is talk to these women and convince them not to have abortions. Not only that, the environmentalists, the population control people, right? They don't want people having babies. And so they want abortions. And so the fact that you would try to talk these women out of, having an abortion, and maybe, adoption, or even her keeping it and setting her up with, mental help, whatever it may be, giving her some other hope or option other than to end the life of her child. The fact that they felt the need to put a law against that, and then just go after people in the way they did, just kind of showed how messed up it is, and who what their ideology is, and also whose pocket they're in as well. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's really a very sad thing that got passed, or they tried to pass it, and that there were people willing to enforce it. That also makes me sad that there were people who were willing
That's
to
what got
enforce
me too. It's like, I served in the military. I get, following orders. There's a certain point you're like, nah, I'm not doing that. Or no, we're not rolling up, with all of these cars and full tactical gear for someone who's done a nonviolent crime. We're not going to do that. Even if it's my job to go and bring them in, we're not going to go in like that. These aren't violent criminals. But to do that just kind of shows, this blindly following orders is no excuse.
Right.
Oh yeah, Great Britain is doing some stuff too. Yes, this guy was silently praying outside of an abortion clinic because they have these laws. It's not even like 30 feet. It's like 3 blocks. You can't do certain things in front of an abortion clinic. And praying. And the officer asked him, because he said, hey, I'm just praying. And she said, what is the nature of your prayer? The government is asking him what he's praying about because it might be a crime because he's doing it in front of an abortion clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he got arrested.
Mind lost. I mean, lost the mind.
Yeah. It is a thing for someone to make that law, but then to go out and carry it out and to ask someone what they're praying about, that's nuts. That is completely nuts. And I said, I saw the video. She said, may I ask you, what is the nature of your prayer? like, what do you want to know what I'm praying about?
Absolutely ridiculous to even ask that question. Like, are you hearing yourself?
Job. Yes.
Is this what you signed up for?
As I commented on social media on that very link, Britain has lost its soul.
It has.
It really has. It is. One thing we don't realize that in being Americans is that Canadians and Europeans do not have freedom of speech.
Nope.
They don't have a First Amendment in their constitution. And so their governments have become way more authoritarian in that way. Because they aren't protected from they don't have the First Amendment to protect them from it.
That's right.
So, yeah.
You have over in Great Britain when you had in the UK when you had people on Facebook and other social platforms say something against the monarchy. If you said something they didn't like, the cops would literally show up at your door, and the police were posting on Facebook saying, if you say mean things about the monarchy, we will come for you. And they did. They did not hold back on that promise. People said stuff and they showed up at their door. There were people who were arrested.
Yeah, and I forgot who the head law enforcement guy was in Britain, but he threatened Elon Musk because Elon Musk on Twitter basically said that Britain was headed for a civil war. He didn't call for civil war. It was something he saw, and his observation of what he was seeing was this divide. He was like, this is going to lead to a civil war. If he was in Britain, he would have been arrested for inciting violence online. But this guy had the nerve to have a press conference and threaten Elon Musk. I'm like, that's crazy. These people have lost their minds. And so just this authoritarianism today, we are seeing it way more on the left than we're seeing it on the political right. So I'm off. So I'll bring up the next. Now let me while it's on my mind, the one that I left off that I meant to put on here was Biden's COVID mandate.
Yes. Yes.
And his attempt to use OSHA, a government agency, to force employees to force their employees to get vaccinated. Right? He tried to pass this thing that said and use OSHA as the agency to do it. And if you had 100 or more employees, you were mandated by OSHA standards, safety, right? Safety standards, to force your employees to get vaccinated. That is authoritarianism.
Yes.
Right? That is the state above the individual. It was no more about individual rights, individual choice. It was the to force mandate you to do something. And that was one of the biggest ones. Is like he's lost his mind. He has lost his mind to try to use an executive order at that, right? So this wasn't even because he was bypassing Congress. He was trying to use an executive order and using it in a federal executive branch agency to force this on people. And so when I hear them talk about Trump wants to be a dictator, Trump is going to use the federal government to be a dictator, the executive branch, I'm like, what do you think y'all have been doing for 4 years? What do you think that COVID mandate was? And so it's one of those things of, it was just like, what frustrated me about this election was hearing things like that about, oh, we got to be scared of this, while at the same time seeing them do the same thing they're warning about. You know? And so yeah, that was my frustration. Any thoughts on the COVID mandate?
Yeah, I mean, I knew people, even people who worked in healthcare, that were basically saying, "Hey, I'm actually out here on the front lines of fighting this virus and trying to take care of people who are seriously ill with this virus, and I don't trust the vaccine. As a medical professional, I don't trust the vaccine, and I'm being told that I'm going to lose my job if I don't get it." And I saw people on both sides of the issue, medical professionals on both sides of the issue, who were all for forcing people to get it, and there were folks who are like, I love what I do. I don't trust this thing. I want to still be able to take care of the sick, and I'm taking every precaution that I can. But this one, I do not trust. You can't take. There's no takebacks on this. There's no takebacks on this thing. And so they didn't want to do it. And as a matter of fact, I saw one person I went to school with. She lost her job as a nurse.
Wow.
Because she didn't want to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
And it's terrible.
Yeah. Can I go woke for a minute?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You got to take the hoodie off, though. You're not allowed to wear the hoodie and be woke. You got to take it off. No, I'm just
I'm just going to be woke for a minute and just kind of see it from their perspective. And I'm going to say that the COVID mandate was a racist law. And it was based on their standards.
Yep.
Because according to their standards, according to any law that has a desperate impact upon people of color is a racist law. And we know that the least vaccinated group was African Americans. And let's look at the history of African Americans in this country and the oppression and the history of medical care and experimentation on African Americans in this country. And so there's a natural distrust for the system and the government forcing a vaccine on people. And so you have Black people who are, I believe at the time was like 35% vaccinated. And so when you put in laws that say, hey, you can't go to a restaurant if you're not vaccinated. You can't go to a movie theater if you're not vaccinated. You can't go to work if you're not. Essentially what COVID vaccine laws were Jim Crow laws. Essentially. They were laws that forced segregation and force black people out of the public spaces. And so, yeah, COVID vaccine laws, according to their own ideology, since it had a desperate impact on black community, racist law. But of course they never said that. Though.
Never said that. Yeah, right. I mean, Biden wouldn't dare say that. So, he talked about, this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated and all this stuff, which had no basis in science whatsoever. No basis in science. So he said this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. No, it wasn't. But he wouldn't dare say who the unvaccinated were because it was mostly black people who weren't vaccinated. It was mostly black people.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I got to tell you a story. So I was traveling. I was traveling for work, and I was in the airport. And I'm sitting in the terminal waiting for the flight, waiting for the plane to start boarding. And it's a group of people. I think I go ahead and say this. These people were pretty hood. There's a group of folks sitting over here who are pretty hood. Okay, black folks, but not just black folks. Okay, these folks were hood. Okay,
there's a sort of cultural element to them.
Yes. So for people out there, I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't know what hood means. But these folk were they're a little rough around the edges, man. They're a little rough around the edges, okay? And so they're sitting there and they're having a conversation about the vaccine. They're talking about the vaccine. And I'm just sitting there acting like I'm reading my book. I ain't reading a dang thing, man. I am not reading anything. I'm listening to this conversation.
You ain't turned a page in 20 minutes.
Yeah. I'm just listening to people talking. And, of course, Tuskegee came up. And they're sitting there talking about the history. And they're saying, man, I don't trust that mother effing vaccine. You remember Tuskegee? I don't remember that. I don't trust that junk. They ain't get me to take that ish. That mother effing vaccine, they were dropping F-bombs and all that stuff in the terminal, just cussing up Storm. Talking about, ain't nobody gonna get me to take that effing vaccine, blah, 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 blah.
Exactly.
And it was like three people just really going hard in the paint. And I was thinking to myself, Biden would never call these people out. He would never call these people out. And if he did, those people would probably, they would give him the smoke, man. He would catch all of the smoke if he tried to call them people out. He would probably have an uprising in the hood if he tried to call them out.
Absolutely. But yeah, they wouldn't go there though. They wouldn't say this was a racist law, even though it had a overwhelmingly negative impact on the black community. The last one I pointed out, and this one blew my mind when I found out about it. It was on the state level, but when Kamala Harris was the Attorney General in California, he decided to go after parents for their kids having high absentees in school. Truancy laws. And she was throwing parents in jail for kids missing too many days in school. And that just blew my mind, especially when I heard her talk about why she was doing it. She was at an event and she was talking about it, and she was proud of the fact that she was going after these parents and putting them in jail. And her whole point was, the state of California is losing $1.4 billion for these students missing school. It was about money. It wasn't about these kids need to be educated. These parents have a responsibility. I mean, that would have been bad still, but no, it was, we're losing too much state money because these kids aren't attending school enough. And so she put these tough laws in. And what happened, it was people, one woman in particular, her daughter was sick. And so like cancer sick. And so there was times where she had to miss a lot of school for treatment, and she was hospitalized. They arrested that woman because her daughter was out of school.
That's right. That's right.
And this is Kamala Harris. This is our, current VP and presidential nominee. When she was Attorney General, That's what she believes in. That's what she's willing to go to use the power to do to someone. You know? That's what I'm talking about. That's authoritarian. That's fascist to me. You know? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, man?
Can you imagine, bro? Can you imagine if a Republican did that? Can you imagine what would have happened if a Republican did that?
Absolutely.
First of all, a Republican wouldn't, because that's some fascist junk. But
to black and brown people. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. We know what the rhetoric would have been.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I mean, it wouldn't even, that would have been on the news all over the place. Now, thankfully, I mean, the reason that we found out about it was because it wound up making it on the news that had happened, because there were a lot of people raising a big stink about it, thankfully. And it's incredible to me. It's incredible to me that you would sit there, Kamala Harris, the woman who decided to enforce something to the point that a woman was arrested for her cancer-stricken child not being in school. The same woman who, when evidence was presented to show that a man who was incarcerated was innocent, she fought to keep him in jail. And I've heard reports that she laughed about it.
Yes.
Because she laughs about everything.
Laughing? What? She would never do that. She wouldn't laugh. She doesn't laugh.
Yeah. I mean, that same woman would have the audacity to say that Trump is like Hitler, that Trump is a fascist. For the audacity of her to say that when with that kind of record, that the people, her constituents, where she is actually in, where she was in position, her constituents were so angry that they called her out on it.
Mm-hmm.
On a national scale, on a national stage, they called her out. She had the audacity to say that Trump was like Hitler. That's a level of crazy, or just a level of I don't know what to call that. I don't know how to classify that. It's ridiculous.
It's gaslighting. It's gaslighting.
Yeah,
is what it is. And Drew's right. The double standard. Yeah, it should be obvious by now, but that was the thing that was frustrating me this whole election cycle, was just the double standard. Even going back to the protesting, right? The summer of 2020, we know rioting is the voice of the unheard, the Dr. King line, and Democrats posting on Twitter, hey, here's the link to donate money to bail out people from getting arrested, who are getting arrested, right? And then January 6th happened, and they're clutching their pearls, and they're talking about this is so horrible. And I'm like, you just got through praising rioting all summer long, and here we are 6 months later, and you want to act like this is the worst thing, and who could do this? Like, the double standard. Like, I believe that both were wrong.
Right.
Like, the rioting all summer was wrong and idiotic. January was wrong and idiotic. But you can't praise one and then try to act high and mighty and pretentious about the other, And so, yeah, just this double standard is just what frustrates me more than anything. So is Trump a fascist? That's the question that we set out to answer tonight. And I think the answer is a resounding no. Trump is not Hitler.
I think that history will not look upon him as being anywhere in the same planet as Hitler. They try to claim that he's like Hitler. They claim that he's a fascist. The receipts are generally never there. They try to claim, one of the things they try to use is that they say he praised Putin, he praised Kim Jong-un, Do I like some of the things that he said? No. Do I think that he, was maybe trying to butter them up in a way that doesn't really make sense? Yes. I think that he was trying to get on their good side by saying things about them and to manipulate the fact that they like being seen as strong men. And he said things that he thought was going to.
It was smart. I'm like, think about if you're a businessman and you're going to negotiate with another company, you're going to say good things about them. You're not going to tear them down. You're not going to talk about how their CEO is so trash because you have to negotiate with them, right? He's just doing the same thing. He's like, no, Putin's a strong leader. Putin's, great guy. Me and Vlad, we're friends. And, but I don't care about the rhetoric. What I cared about was the results he got from doing it. And he got results. Yeah. He got results. His foreign policy was much better than the current administration's.
Oh, yeah. No contest. No contest. Some of the rhetoric out in public, there's a little part of me that thinks that maybe he was trolling them in public, because from what I heard behind closed doors, he was a gangster. From behind closed doors, he threw hands.
You don't embarrass somebody in public. And so when we talk about foreign policy, and when you ask me about Iran doing something and stuff, a lot of that stuff is just so they can save face. It's not that they're trying to go to war. It's just they have to look strong for their people. And so you can't embarrass them publicly. You have to. I can say you have to. It works well in your favor if you show them respect in public, even if behind closed doors you bring the hammer, right? Because it's all about how they look. It's an image thing. And so, it's like, put like this, there are countries we know that work with us behind the scene and then go out in front of the camera and say death to America. They do. Because they have to look that way to their people. The great Satan, death to America, and then behind the scenes, it's all good.
It's a game. It's
a game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think have to agree with you there. I don't think that that Trump goes down being thought of as an authoritarian, a fascist, the second coming of Hitler. I think is that what, I can't remember if that's what Kamala said. Did she say he was the second coming of Hitler?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
But they would take things out of context. Military. He wants to use the military against, the enemies of the state, when it was clearly he was talking about people who are rioting and burning down cities. He's saying we should use the military to stop that. That's not fascist.
Right.
And so they would just take things like that and just run with it. And Sat believed it, like Anna Navarro. She clearly believes it. And so so that is that. But there was some other news this week. And this to me, this is in line with the current topic. So Mac, who Trump had nominated for Attorney General, he steps out. He steps aside. He's not going to be Attorney General. And he didn't just step aside. It was kind of the writing was on the wall. He wasn't going to get approved by the Senate. Which goes to my point of, is Trump a fascist, or are the things they were saying about him true? Because if they were true, it wouldn't be an issue of if Gaetz is going to get approved by the Senate, because their whole point was Trump's going to come in. They say he's going to get rid of the Constitution. He's going to be a dictator, right? And here we are, his nominee isn't even approved and drops out. That is why I say it was laughable if you understand the way our government works, You can't come in and just be an authoritarian the way they were trying to paint Trump as an authoritarian, right? He still has to go through a process to a point where the person he wants for attorney general has to be approved by the Senate. And so, to me, that was just a sign that he's not a dictator, clearly, because his appointee isn't even getting selected.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts on Matt Gaetz stepping aside?
So there are a lot of people who said that, or I shouldn't say a lot of people, but there were a couple of people I respect who said that this was Trump playing 4D chess. So Eric Erickson he said from the beginning, he said, look, what Trump is doing is he's rewarding Matt Gaetz for his loyalty, but he knows that Matt Gaetz is never going to get past the Senate. And so Matt Gaetz is going to get rejected, and he's going to get to put somebody competent in there. And I was like, wow, okay, I could actually see that being the case. Whether or not that's what he really intended doesn't matter. I'm just happy that Gaetz is out. And the crazy thing is that Gaetz has stepped down from Congress.
Yes.
And he's not running again next year.
Yeah.
Gaetz was probably one of my least favorite people because I think that he tends to be a grandstander, but I will say we got a much better Speaker of the House as a result of some of Gaetz's antics. So I need to give credit where credit is due. I much prefer Johnson over McCarthy, not even a question. So that was a good thing that came from some things that Gaetz participated in and kind of spearheaded. I think that the real thing I heard somebody else say, and this sounds so plausible, that so I know somebody who knows somebody who's close to the situation, and they said, here's how it went down. Trump is on the plane. He's looking at the short list of people that they've given to him to nominate for attorney general.
Mm-hmm.
He's fussing because he doesn't like any of the list because he says they're all too traditional. Gaetz hears that he's not happy about it. Gaetz is on the plane with Trump. Gaetz manages to go and get them to let him into the office where Trump is on the plane fussing about the situation. And he, on the plane, convinces Trump to nominate him. So Trump does it without really thinking too much about it. He's like, hey, yeah, why not? He says, all right, cool. Trump doesn't know about all of Gaetz's ethics issues.
Yeah.
And so they're saying that there is actually a possibility that Trump didn't know that Gaetz had all of these issues going on, and he's actually mad at Gaetz because he put himself forward knowing he had all this stuff going on. That is a very plausible story to me. I could see Trump doing exactly that, and I can see Gaetz doing exactly that because that fits his MO.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for some of those conversations to see how they went down. But yeah, the Matt Gaetz thing is the one that caught everybody off guard. That was the one that was out of left field. I'll take that back. The Pete Hegseth was also out of left field and caught people off guard. But I think Matt Gaetz was probably the one, but just because he's so unlikable by people on both sides of the aisle, it was kind of more of a shock than anything else. As the can you post the in the chat? Yeah, we have a link, and there's hoodies, there's t-shirts, hats, cups, mugs.
There it is.
Boom, perfect timing. There it is. And you can get it in different colors as well. If red is too in your face, But I like the red because it kind of sent the the message of what we're getting at.
It sends a message, baby.
Yep. but no, I like the fact that I think Gates would have just been more of a distraction than anything else in that role. I actually like the replacement. Is it Pam Bundy?
Yeah.
She's the attorney general in Florida, which we know Florida is operating at a high level. And so I don't think it's going to be any trouble getting her passed. It's a non-controversial pick is what it is. And so yeah, I think that's going to happen, and it's going to be kind of a non-issue from here on out. But speaking of Trump's kind of picks, he picked Elon and Vivek to do a special mission, the Department of Government Efficiency. They're going to cut some waste.
Oh, yeah.
And there are two things that came out this week that proved why this effort is needed. And you sent me both of them. And one was failing another audit. This is the 7th audit in a row or something like that the Pentagon has failed in terms of, we don't know where that money is. We don't know where that went. So what are your thoughts on the Pentagon just basically saying, yeah, we don't really know where all that money went?
Only the government could get away with losing billions of dollars and not accounting for it and not expecting to be held accountable for it. 7 times they failed an audit where billions of dollars we don't know what happened to it. I don't think that I don't think it's going to fly anymore, and I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, I do have a unconventional thought about it. Some of it is just the government is horrible and inefficient and wasteful. But I do believe some things within the military, put like this, if you knew where the military was spending money, you would know particular things about the military, if that makes sense. I think the way things are spent, especially in a lot of areas, the purpose of secrecy. That's just my theory. I think essentially ghosted money. I don't think it's like, oh, we don't know where it went. I think they don't want to say where it went. Whether it's some type of research development, whether it's some type of special program or whatever. There are some things out there that they don't want on the books. And it's like, oh, man, we don't know where that $3 billion went.
I agree with you. I that crossed my mind. I'll say that I still think that's dangerous. I'm totally fine, okay? If the answer comes back, that's classified. We know where the money went. It's classified. We can't say a dang thing about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm good with that. You say you don't know where the money's at, you can do whatever you want. That means that nobody knows. And I know somebody knows. I'm willing to put money down that somebody knows.
Somebody knows where that money went. Yeah.
Right. But if you say it's classified, okay, I got to respect that and say, yeah, because that crossed my mind. If I'm trying to advance certain initiatives that are top secret and reporting where that money went would be revealing privileged information. Yeah. I wouldn't want that public. If you're an auditor, I don't know that I can trust you. How do I know that you're not a foreign agent? We've already shown that our government sucks at being able to identify foreign agents as it is. So totally get that. Just say it's classified. Say what what they make up in rush hour says G14 classified. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yep. G14 classified. Okay. But I want to know somebody knows where the money is.
Yeah.
Somebody knows where the money is.
Absolutely. And Kimberly made a good point. I forgot about this. They did announce this week that they were going to cut off Planned Parenthood from federal funding. So in their talk about cutting back government, I don't. That's one thing that people have been asking for. Is like, okay, yeah, you have the right to an abortion or whatever. Taxpayer money shouldn't be funding it. And so, yeah, I'm glad to see that. That is a win. Even for I'll play this. It is a win for the pro-life crowd who's been asking for this. Even though we know that Trump isn't a pro-life per se candidate, but he keeps doing things that are. I'm just saying, he just keeps doing things.
I'll take him. I didn't expect him to start Doge. I didn't expect him to start it, but I'll take it, baby.
Yeah. And how many conservative presidents that we put in office even did this?
Right.
That never. I mean, George W. Bush could have defunded Planned Parenthood. Never did it.
Never did it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and the last thing, the Biden administration is seeking to forgive $4.7 billion of the loan to Ukraine. Before he gets out of office, he's making sure that part of the money given to Ukraine is forgiven. I guess like a PPP loan or something. I don't know.
Right. You know what? It's a lot of people that were mad about us giving so much money to Ukraine, and we're going to do an episode where we talk about the importance of that situation. We're going to do that, but if you go and forgive that loan, because part of the way this was sold to the American people was you are not giving them money. This is a loan. They have to pay the money back. If you forgive the loan,
it's a PPP loan.
So you lied. So on your way out, you're going to try to forgive the loan. And what you're going to do is you're going to validate everybody who was mad, right? So then people who maybe could have been convinced that there is a strategic reason that is important to America for Russia to not get a hold of certain assets that they would get if they were to take over Ukraine. There are resources, there are assets that we really don't want them to get a hold of because it would make them more powerful. And you don't want Russia to be more powerful on that side of the world because it's not going to be good for Americans.
Yeah.
People who might have listened to that argument, after this joker goes and tries to forgive the loan, they ain't going to listen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is what I found out when I read the article. So I think they're trying to forgive $4.7 billion of it. Apparently, Congress approved in the budget that up to like $9.4 billion could be forgiven. So it could have been a larger portion forgiven. And this was passed by Congress.
Yeah, well. Well, there you go, folks. Dadgum. They have the power of the purse. Okay, well,
but at the same time, right? I'm gonna give Congress a pass in terms of, there are concessions you have to make, right? And when that's in the budget, you can vote against the budget, but people are gonna say, "Oh, you voted for senior citizens getting health care," when in reality, you was voting against this forgiveness for Ukraine thing, right? And so it's always things in the big budget that's passed that people don't agree with, but they pass it in terms of a compromise to get other stuff funded.
Right.
And so,
right. So I see that. I see that. All I got to say is, they've proven then that they can make a budget. And I want it. I want a balanced budget. They proved they can make one.
Absolutely. Balance is another question, but yeah, they can do a budget.
Oh my gosh, man. So we got to land the plane because we got to let our producer go home.
Oh yeah, that's right. That is right. It's not a school night. He can stay out. He
get paid,
Oh, Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, if you were in high school, they couldn't work you past 10 o'clock. You had to get off. But sorry, Liam, it's Friday. They don't count tonight. You don't have to go to school tomorrow.
Liam over here, he about to unplug the computer. No, I'm just kidding. Liam said, keep playing with me. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't say that.
But yeah, you're right. We do have to land it. Man, this was a good episode. It was a lot going on this week. I think we answered the question, is Trump a fascist? We kind of looked at how the government in many ways can be authoritarian. We even went down the Second Amendment route. So that was good. And we got to do a show on that for Claire. And just talked about, Gates and Doge and it's been a fascinating week, and I'm looking forward to just kind of keep following this train and see where it goes as we do a transition to power and this new administration comes in. And yeah, man, let's see how this thing falls out.
Dude, like I've said many times, the content for this show writes itself. We don't really have to try very hard. I mean, every single week there's stuff that's happening that Kevin probably going to get tired. He's probably going to get tired of me blowing his phone up, because I think every day I'm taking stuff. I'm like, oh, we have to talk about that on the show. And I'll be blowing up his phone.
Yep. And this week I will have internet service all week. I won't be in the middle of nowhere, Montana. So it'll be easier to keep up with what's going on. But with that said, hey, we appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Everybody in the chat, you guys have been great. If you haven't already, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you guys know when we go live. Also, help. This is a new channel. We're trying to grow it. And the way that grows is, number one, YouTube algorithms getting us in there, but also just word of mouth and telling people and sharing on your own social media. But yeah, so we really appreciate you guys, and kind of help us grow this channel. If you need the merch, the link is in the description. And that's it. Until next time, you guys stay informed, and we'll be back.
Have a good one, y'all. We'll see you next week.
Yep.
This podcast was filmed at Podium Studios at Marietta Square. Grow your business with turnkey, professional quality podcasting, live streaming, and online events. Don't worry about editing. Don't worry about anything. Just come in and record. Learn more at thepodium.studio. Step up, Podium.